Long before the galaxy became busy with trade routes and bright cities of light, the Dravari species ruled among the stars. They were wise, elegant, and old, so old that even their youngest citizens had forgotten what fear felt like. Their homeworld floated quietly in a golden nebula, its sky full of slow-moving ships and towers that touched the clouds. They called themselves the Keepers of Order, the Teachers of Peace. In the center of their capital stood a hall of crystal, where the elders of the Dravari gathered. These were the few who still remembered the dangerous days of the early expansion, when every new world might hold monsters or miracles. They kept records of old warnings, stories passed from one generation to another. One story, in particular, was always told with lowered voices, the story of a small, blue planet near the edge of the Orion Arm, a planet called Earth. The story was ancient. Some said it was a myth, others called it superstition. The elders, however, remembered details too sharp to ignore. The tale said that long ago, before the Dravari learned faster than light travel, they had sent early probes into that system. What they saw there frightened even the bravest explorers. The planet's surface was covered in scars, massive craters, burned cities, melted metal. Yet every time destruction came, life returned stronger. Those creatures, the first explorers had said, they rebuild faster than we can understand. They do not fear the fire. They live beside it, generations passed. The Dravari grew powerful and peaceful. They built fleets, universities, and colonies. War became something they studied, not something they lived through. To them, the idea of a violent, emotional species surviving among the stars sounded ridiculous. So when the elders spoke of humans, younger leaders laughed. Primitive myths, one of them had once said. If these humans even existed, they must have destroyed themselves long ago. You cannot build a civilization on anger and chaos. But the elders did not laugh. One, her skin turning silver with age, looked out over the city lights and whispered, "You misunderstand. They do not build from chaos, they build through it." The warning was recorded, sealed and forgotten. Centuries later, the Dravari Council gathered again, this time to discuss the exploration of the Sol system. The new generation of scientists wanted to map unclaimed worlds for colonization. Earth's data was old and incomplete. To the Council, it looked like an abandoned world, one rich in water, minerals, and atmosphere. A perfect candidate for settlement, a young fleet commander volunteered. "If it still exists," he said with a confident smile, "we will make it bloom again under the Dravari flag." No one objected. The elders were not invited to the meeting. When the news reached them, silence filled the crystal hall. The eldest among them pressed a hand against the cool floor and whispered the words that had been spoken for centuries. "Do not disturb the fire if you do not understand its warmth." But their warnings were small compared to the sound of engines leaving orbit. The fleet launched, shimmering like a silver river through space. Their mission? To claim the forgotten planet and expand the glory of the Dravari civilization. Weeks turned to months as the ships traveled across the stars. The closer they came to Sol, the quieter the space became. Normally, explorers would pick up radio chatter, ancient satellites, signs of communication, but there was only silence. It was eerie, but the commander brushed it aside. "They have probably gone extinct," he said to his officers. "A planet that quiet cannot be alive." When their scanners finally caught sight of Earth, everyone on the bridge fell silent. The planet looked beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. But there was something else. Orbiting the world were objects, metal fragments, old satellites, and strange shapes that didn't match any known design. "Remnants of an old civilization," one of the officers suggested. The commander nodded. "Begin mapping. Let us prepare for landing." As their ships descended toward the upper atmosphere, they noticed signs of life. Cities, yes, but dimly lit and organized in ways unfamiliar to them. Roads like veins, towers shaped not for beauty but for function. The commander was fascinated. "They've rebuilt," he said. "Maybe there's still something left to learn here." They sent out a greeting signal in every known galactic language. No response. They tried again. Still nothing. "Perhaps they've lost the ability to communicate," another officer said. The commander smiled. "Then we'll speak to them in person." They deployed small observation drones. The machines entered the clouds, gliding silently over oceans and land. They captured images of human cities, people walking, working, laughing. They looked nothing like the savages the old stories described. In fact, they looked peaceful. The commander sent a message to the council. The planet is inhabited. Species appears stable. They show no threat response. The council was delighted. A primitive species that survived its own chaos, they said. Perfect candidates for integration. But far away on Earth, something else was happening. The humans had noticed. In hidden command centers buried under mountains and deep beneath the ocean, screens flickered to life. Radar systems caught the movement of unknown crafts. Governments around the world quietly activated their emergency protocols. No public announcement was made. Instead, the world went silent. Every signal, every broadcast stopped. For the first time in centuries, Earth went completely dark. The Dravari commander thought it was a coincidence. Perhaps their technology is interfering with ours, he told his crew. No need to worry. He didn't know that thousands of eyes were already watching his ships from below. Human scientists studied their propulsion. Military strategists mapped their positions. Leaders debated whether to strike or to wait. Earth had learned long ago that curiosity could be fatal. Days passed. The Dravari ships continued to study and scan. They sent probes down to the surface, small, harmless machines meant to collect air samples and geological data. Some landed in forests, others in deserts, a few near the ocean. None of them returned. Strange, the commander murmured. It's as if they were taken. He ordered another probe launch, this time under armed escort. As soon as the escort reached low orbit, every human satellite that had been sleeping suddenly turned on. Radar locked. Systems blinked red. For a moment, the Dravari fleet floated in silence, unaware of the invisible crosshairs now pointed directly at them. Back on Earth, deep inside a hidden facility, a voice gave a calm order. Maintain observation. Do not engage unless provoked. It wasn't the voice of panic, it was the voice of experience. The Dravari commander sent one last message toward the surface, an open broadcast. We come in peace. We mean no harm. It went unanswered. Then something remarkable happened. A faint signal came back, a single line of text displayed on their monitors. It wasn't in any alien language. It was in theirs. We heard the same words before from others who came uninvited. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. So they understand us, one whispered. The commander frowned. Then why hide? Why not speak openly? Because somewhere below, humanity was still deciding whether this was another first contact, or the beginning of another invasion. Night fell across the blue world, and the Dravari ships remained suspended in orbit like silver ghosts. They didn't know it yet, but history had just shifted. The Elder's warning had begun to echo through time once again. On the Dravari homeworld, an elder sat alone in the Hall of Crystal, staring at a map of the stars. Her trembling hand traced the coordinates of Sul. She closed her eyes and whispered, "They will not listen until they see the flames for themselves." Far away, the first flame was already lit, not in the sky, but in the hearts of the humans watching above them. The galaxy would soon remember what the elders never forgot, that humanity's silence is not weakness, it is the sound before the storm. The humans on Earth had always learned to watch quietly before acting. It was not fear. They simply understood the cost of mistakes. Every species in the galaxy that had underestimated humans had regretted it. Now the visitors in the sky gave them reason to be cautious again. For weeks, the Dravari ships hovered above the planet, scanning, mapping, and sending probes. The humans watched every move, tracking every ship, every signal. But they did not react openly. Instead, they used what the Dravari could not see: patience, observation, and strategy. In cities that gleamed like glass under the sun, ordinary people went about their lives completely unaware of the silent eyes above them. Farmers tended their fields, children played in parks, workers crossed busy streets. Life went on as it always had. But deep below the surface, in hidden command centers, humans moved like a shadow army. Every detail of the alien visitors' technology was recorded. Every movement logged, every vulnerability analyzed. The Dravari commander thought he was in control. "They are weak," he told his crew. "They have no weapons that can reach us here." His voice carried confidence, the kind that only comes from years of never being challenged. But the humans had learned from their history. They did not need to match the Dravari ship for ship. They only needed to be smarter, faster, and more precise. In secret facilities, humans were assembling tools and systems that seemed impossible. Weapons were silent, undetectable, and ready. Communications were rerouted so the Dravari could not track human strategies. Everything was designed to protect the planet while keeping the visitors unaware of what was coming. The first contact team of humans, engineers, scientists, and strategists worked together in perfect synchronization. They watched as Dravari probes landed on the outskirts of cities, expecting panic. But the humans allowed the probes to move freely, pretending ignorance. They even left the occasional drone untouched, letting it send back false data. It was a dangerous game, and every second mattered. One mistake could alert the Dravari to the humans' preparedness. But the humans had become masters of patience. They had survived natural disasters, wars, and pandemics by waiting, learning, and adapting. Now they were doing the same with these alien invaders. The Dravari, confident in their superiority, made a bold move. A landing ship descended near a large city. Its engines roared and lights blazed across the skyline. The commander expected resistance. He expected to see fear. Instead, the streets below were calm. People continued their lives as if the ship was a shadow they could not even notice. "This is unusual," one officer whispered. "They are doing nothing," the commander laughed. "Silence is weakness. We will show them order." The landing team began their mission, stepping onto the surface. Their suits gleamed in the sunlight, their technology far beyond anything humans had openly displayed. They walked through the city, scanning, recording, and mapping. Still, no human interference occurred, but humans were watching. Every move was logged, every weapon ready. The humans did not attack, not yet. They allowed the Dravari to believe they were in control. It was a dangerous kind of silence, one that required nerves stronger than steel. Then the first real test came. A small group of Dravari soldiers attempted to disable a human communications array. They assumed it was unimportant, just part of the city's infrastructure. But the humans had anticipated this. Within minutes, automated systems surrounded the soldiers. Nets of electromagnetic fields froze their technology. Non-lethal, precise, and invisible to the naked eye, the soldiers were rendered helpless without harm. The Dravari commander received the message. One team immobilized. "They are not attacking, but they are prepared," he frowned. "This is impossible."
"They are weak!"
"How can they?" He did not finish. The humans allowed him to believe he had misjudged them, but they did not reveal their full strength. Instead, they began a careful, almost invisible demonstration of their capabilities. Drones patrolled the city, mapping the streets. Communications were intercepted, signals scrambled, and any Dravari attempt to coordinate faced delay and confusion. It was not violence, it was control. The humans wanted the Dravari to understand one thing. Earth was not easy to conquer. But they also wanted to avoid unnecessary destruction. They did not fight to dominate, they fought to protect. Their goal was clear: show that aggression against Earth would be met with calculated resistance and nothing more. The Dravari sent more ships to reinforce their landing teams. They expected resistance to crumble once they showed their overwhelming power. They were wrong. Humans began subtle, strategic strikes, not to kill but to demonstrate precision. Supply convoys were intercepted in space, communications were disrupted, and equipment was rendered useless. Each act was small, almost imperceptible, but it sent a clear message. Earth would not surrender. From their command centers, humans watched the Dravari commander's frustration grow. They saw the arrogance in the eyes of the visitors, the overconfidence that had brought them to this point, and they waited. They waited because they knew that patience was their greatest weapon. One day, a Dravari officer landed near a coastal city to survey the human response. They expected to find panic. Instead, they saw calm. Citizens continued their daily routines, oblivious to the ships in the sky. The officer was puzzled. How could a species that had no visible military presence resist so easily? The humans had learned long ago that visibility could be deceptive. Strength was not always loud. Sometimes it was silent, hidden, and unstoppable when it needed to be. In another part of the world, humans had activated a hidden defense network in orbit. Satellites moved silently, forming a barrier the Dravari could not detect. Every attempt to scan or communicate was blocked, rerouted, or intercepted. Humans controlled the battlefield without firing a single shot. The Dravari commander, still believing in their superiority, tried diplomacy again. He sent messages. "We mean no harm. We wish to study your species." Cooperate, and you will be rewarded. The humans did not reply immediately, not because they were afraid, but because they wanted the Dravari to understand the cost of arrogance. When they finally responded, it was simple. We remember history. We do not forget those who underestimate us. Actions speak louder than words. The message stunned the Dravari. They had never encountered a species that spoke in such confidence, even without direct confrontation. For the first time, they began to doubt. Humans were not fighting with anger or hatred. They were fighting with purpose, strategy, and the understanding that every move counted. They allowed the Dravari to see a glimpse of their strength, enough to create caution, enough to make them think twice. Back in the Dravari capital, the elders watched from afar. They had not been involved in the mission, but they had monitored the events quietly. The elder who had warned centuries ago now nodded slowly. "We told them," she said. They did not listen. Now they will see. The humans, still unseen in full force, continued to prepare. Their cities were intact, their people unaware, but below the surface every plan was being executed with precision. They studied the Dravari ship's weaknesses, mapped their strategies, and created contingencies for every possible outcome. The first confrontation had not yet begun, but the stage was set. The humans had demonstrated the principle of patience and control. The Dravari had assumed dominance, but they had only been drawn into a game they did not understand. In the night skies above Earth, the Dravari ships glimmered like stars, unaware that the planet below was ready. Not with fear, but with calculation. The humans would not strike recklessly. They would not attack without purpose. But if provoked, they would respond with precision, intelligence, and the kind of resolve that only centuries of survival could teach. And so, the Dravari waited, unaware that their lesson had already begun. The humans had chosen patience, observation, and silent strength as their weapons. They had reminded the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving, and that underestimating a species that had survived countless disasters was a mistake no one should make twice. Somewhere deep inside a hidden command center, a human strategist smiled. "They think they are in control," they said quietly. "Let them believe it. The moment they make a mistake, the consequences will be theirs." The silence above the cities was not emptiness, it was tension, waiting to snap. The humans had made the first move without firing a single shot, and the Dravari, so confident in their power, did not yet realize that the storm was only beginning. The galaxy would soon remember Earth not as a world to conquer, but as a force to be respected, and the humans, they simply watched, calm and patient, knowing that when the time came they would show the universe why the elders had warned about them all along. The days in orbit above Earth grew tense. The Dravari commander, once brimming with confidence, now felt unease gnawing at him. Every plan they made seemed to unravel before it even began. Their probes were intercepted, their communications scrambled, and their landing teams immobilized. It was as if the planet itself were alive, watching and calculating each move with careful precision. Humans had always been survivors. They had learned long ago that brute strength alone rarely won wars. Instead, observation, patience, and adaptation were their greatest weapons. From hidden command centers deep underground and beneath the oceans, human strategists monitored the alien fleet constantly. Every movement, every scan, every signal was analyzed in real time. They were not preparing for destruction. They were preparing for lessons in humility. On the surface, life continued in its ordinary rhythm. Children ran through parks. Merchants opened their shops, and workers crossed streets under the soft glow of the morning sun. To anyone unaware, nothing seemed unusual. But below that calm exterior, humans moved like a shadow army, silent and precise. The first real test of patience came when a group of Dravari ships attempted to intercept one of Earth's low-orbit satellites. They expected the humans to panic, to scramble defenses. Instead, the humans allowed the ships to approach. As the Dravari tried to disable the satellite, an invisible electromagnetic net trapped their technology. Instruments failed, navigation systems glitched, and the Dravari were forced to retreat without even realizing why. "This is impossible," the commander said to his officers. "They should not have the ability to block our ships from orbit." One officer shook his head. "Perhaps we underestimated them, sir." The commander frowned. That word, underestimate, was one he had not wanted to hear. He reminded himself that the humans were small, weak, and primitive. Yet they were proving to be something else entirely. While the Dravari deliberated, the humans took another step forward. They had built drones designed to resemble ordinary birds and small aircraft. These drones patrolled cities, forests, and coastlines, mapping the alien technology, recording data, and subtly influencing the battlefield. No one on the streets noticed anything. To the people of Earth, life went on unchanged. The humans' approach was deliberate. They did not need to attack in open combat. Every action was calculated to demonstrate a simple truth. Earth could not be easily taken, and arrogance would cost the Dravari more than they were prepared to give. The next move came when a Dravari scout team attempted to land in a desert region. They believed it was uninhabited, a safe space for exploration. Humans allowed them to touch down, observing quietly from a distance. The scouts deployed small vehicles to study the terrain. Within hours, the vehicles ceased functioning. Without warning, the Dravari systems froze, sensors blinking erratically. Invisible to their eyes, human countermeasures had neutralized every device. "What is happening?" A Dravari officer shouted over the communicator. "Everything has stopped." The commander's hands tightened on the railing of the ship. "It is a fluke," he muttered. A temporary malfunction, but it was no fluke. Humans were demonstrating restraint and power simultaneously. They were not attacking for the sake of conflict. They were teaching caution. Each action was a lesson in humility, an unspoken warning to the Dravari that Earth would not bow to intimidation. In another part of the world, humans were preparing a more complex strategy. They activated a network of satellites and orbital drones, creating a protective shield over key regions. Every signal the Dravari sent was intercepted and rerouted, giving the impression that their attempts at control were failing due to technical difficulties rather than human precision. The Dravari commander became frustrated. He had expected resistance, but not this level of strategic foresight. Every attempt to land, every probe, and every scan seemed countered before it could even begin. "They are not reacting with fear," he said to an officer. "They are not panicking, yet they are controlling the battlefield in ways we cannot see." The officer hesitated. "Sir, perhaps they are smarter than we thought." The commander's eyes narrowed. He refused to admit it aloud, but the thought gnawed at him. Humans, small and seemingly fragile, were proving to be a force unlike anything the Dravari had encountered before. On Earth, the humans remained calm. They moved quietly, making adjustments to strategies and defenses as the alien fleet reacted. They did not seek fame or recognition. They did not need it. Their focus was singular: ensure the planet remained safe, and remind the invaders that arrogance could have consequences. One night, a Dravari ship hovered above a major city, attempting to broadcast a message demanding cooperation. The humans allowed it. They did not jam the signal immediately. Instead, they monitored, analyzing, and preparing. Then, when the time was right, a human operator sent a simple, calculated response. "We remember history. Do not mistake silence for weakness." The message shocked the Dravari, not because it was aggressive, but because it was calm, deliberate, and confident. These humans were not reacting out of fear or anger. They were responding with intelligence and precision, qualities the Dravari had assumed were theirs alone. The commander stared at the message, unable to hide his disbelief. How can they speak with such confidence without even attacking? "They are patient," an officer replied quietly. "And patient is powerful." The humans continued their strategy in silence, never revealing their full strength. Every probe intercepted, every system neutralized, and every maneuver executed was part of a broader lesson. They were teaching the Dravari that force alone did not guarantee victory, and that intelligence, patience, and foresight were weapons equally as deadly. Meanwhile, the Dravari began to notice cracks in their own operations. Communication lines between ships failed unpredictably. Supply routes were disrupted. Small teams sent to explore or establish positions returned with reports of strange malfunctions. No human troops had directly engaged them yet, but the effect was undeniable. The humans were controlling the battlefield without firing a shot. The commander tried diplomacy again, sending a message promising peace in exchange for cooperation. The humans responded not with threats but with truth. "We do not seek war, but we do not surrender. Respect is earned, not demanded." The words lingered in the Dravari's minds. They had come to Earth expecting compliance, perhaps even curiosity from a primitive species. Instead, they found strategy, intelligence, and calm determination. It was the kind of resistance the Dravari had never encountered, and it unsettled them more than any weapon could. Humans had mastered the art of silent defense. They did not need to confront the invaders openly. Each calculated move, each invisible countermeasure, was a demonstration of power without destruction. It was a quiet storm, a warning that the planet would not be taken lightly. As the Dravari commander watched his fleet struggle against unseen resistance, he began to doubt his own judgment. He had relied on arrogance and assumed superiority, only to discover that the human silence masked a depth of capability he could not comprehend. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, humans continued to coordinate. Engineers adjusted drones, strategists recalculated movements, and analysts monitored alien responses. Every action was precise, purposeful, and unyielding. They were teaching the invaders that patience, foresight, and unity were formidable weapons. Above, the Dravari ships shimmered like silver clouds, unaware of the invisible networks controlling their every move. The commander could only watch, frustrated as his assumptions about humans crumbled. Finally, the first cracks of real understanding appeared. Some Dravari officers whispered doubts, questioning the wisdom of their mission. They began to see that Earth was not a world of weakness but a fortress of intellect, patience, and precision. And while the humans never celebrated or revealed themselves, their message was clear. The planet would not fall to arrogance or underestimation. The Dravari had been warned. The Elder's words echoed through every failed attempt, every malfunctioned probe, and every intercepted signal. Humans had reminded the galaxy, silently but undeniably, that they were not to be underestimated. They were survivors, thinkers, and strategists. And above all, they were patient. The Dravari commander, staring at the cities below, finally realized the truth he had refused to accept. The humans were not weak, and their quiet strength was far more dangerous than anything he had imagined. In that moment, the first seeds of fear were planted. The humans had not fired a single weapon, yet they had already begun to rewrite the rules of engagement. The galaxy would soon understand that underestimating humanity was a mistake no one could afford to make, and on Earth, life continued. Ordinary people went about their days unaware of the silent war being waged above them. But beneath the surface, humans remained vigilant, patient, and prepared. They did not need to attack yet. They only needed to wait, observe, and let the arrogance of the invaders reveal itself. When the first confrontation truly came, it would be decisive, and the Dravari would finally understand why the elders had warned them about humanity all along. The tension above Earth was now almost tangible. The Dravari fleet, once confident and orderly, floated in orbit like a restless storm, unsure of what awaited them below. Every movement they made seemed to be anticipated, countered, and nullified without explanation. They were facing something they had never expected: humans who did not fight openly, yet controlled every move with precision and patience. For centuries, humans had survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by thinking ahead. Every disaster, every war, every catastrophe had taught them the value of preparation. Now all of that training and wisdom was being applied in a single, careful response to the Dravari. Deep underground, in a command facility shielded from satellites and sensors, humans monitored the alien fleet. Every scanner, every probe, every ship was tracked. Analysts worked tirelessly, calculating trajectories, predicting reactions, and preparing for every possible scenario. Engineers fine-tuned silent defense systems that could disable the Dravari ships without harming life. Strategists coordinated every move with calm precision. They had learned that patience, observation, and calculated restraint could be far more powerful than brute force. Meanwhile, on the surface, cities remained calm. People went about their daily routines, completely unaware of the silent war unfolding in the skies above. Streets bustled with life, markets thrived, children played, and workers went about their tasks. There was no panic, no fear, only the quiet, hidden work of a species that had learned how to survive against impossible odds. The Dravari commander, frustrated by the constant failure of their plans, decided it was time to act more aggressively. He ordered a strike on a remote desert region where humans had been tracking their fleet. He believed this would demonstrate the power and superiority of his people. His officers nodded, confident that this display would finally intimidate the humans. The strike began quietly. Ships descended from orbit, their engines cutting through the thin atmosphere of the desert. Landers opened, revealing Dravari soldiers and equipment designed to subdue any resistance. Yet as the soldiers stepped onto the ground, nothing happened. No humans appeared. No attack came. Unbeknownst to the Dravari, humans had been monitoring the area for weeks. Sensors hidden in the desert disguised as natural formations tracked every movement of the alien ships. Drones, nearly invisible, patrolled the skies, recording every detail. Communications were intercepted, and attempts to coordinate the landing were silently disrupted. When the Dravari soldiers tried to deploy their equipment, they found it failing. Devices refused to operate, sensors went dark, and communications cut out entirely. It was as if the planet itself had turned against them, though no visible force was present. "What is happening?" one soldier shouted. "Our systems are failing." The commander's eyes widened. "Impossible. Check the instruments again." The soldiers struggled, but nothing worked. The humans had designed their defenses to be subtle, precise, and non-lethal. The goal was not to destroy, but to demonstrate control. The Dravari were not being attacked. They were being outsmarted at every step. Back in the underground command center, a strategist watched the monitors with calm satisfaction. "They will learn," they said quietly. "This is their first lesson. Patience is a weapon." Above the desert, the Dravari commander began to understand that his assumptions about humans were wrong. He had believed that silence and lack of visible weaponry meant weakness. He was discovering, painfully, that humans did not need to fight openly to hold power. Their intelligence, planning, and restraint were enough to turn the battlefield against the invaders without a single shot being fired. The humans continued their strategy. Drones and satellites moved like invisible threads, silently intercepting every attempt at attack or communication. Probes that had been sent to study human cities were disabled or rerouted, without the Dravari understanding how it had happened. Every attempt to intimidate or control was met with precision and calm. The first signs of fear appeared among the Dravari officers. They had never faced a species that could control the battlefield without revealing itself. Their pride and arrogance were being challenged by patience, strategy, and invisible strength. "Sir," one officer said quietly, "we cannot predict their moves. Every plan we make fails." The commander, for the first time, was silent. He had expected resistance, but not this. He had expected fear, panic, and submission, but the humans were calm, observant, and ready. They were a force that could not be measured by traditional standards of strength. Meanwhile, humans prepared their first controlled response. It was a calculated demonstration, meant to show the Dravari that their arrogance had limits. They activated a network of orbital drones, which created the illusion of large-scale force without actually harming anyone. Communications were jammed selectively, supply lines were rerouted, and small systems were disabled, giving the impression of overwhelming control. The Dravari were stunned. They had come expecting to dominate, but they were now caught in a web they could not see, controlled by a species they had underestimated. Their technology was advanced, but it was predictable. Humans, patient and intelligent, exploited every weakness. The first direct human action occurred quietly and deliberately. One of the Dravari landing teams attempted to advance into a valley, believing it to be empty. Within minutes, the path ahead was blocked by controlled environmental systems, vehicles trapped in sand, sensors disrupted, and the terrain itself appearing to shift. No human was visible, yet the soldiers could not proceed. "This is madness," one Dravari soldier shouted. "The land itself is against us." The commander realized that the humans were demonstrating a principle he had never considered. Control did not require confrontation. It required foresight, strategy, and patience. The humans were teaching without attacking, warning without threatening, and demonstrating power without violence. In the cities below, life remained calm. People continued their routines, unaware that their planet was the center of a silent battle of strategy and intellect. The humans had mastered the art of invisible defense, ensuring that the world remained safe while the invaders' arrogance crumbled. The Dravari commander attempted diplomacy again, sending messages promising peace and cooperation in exchange for compliance. The humans responded, not with threats but with a calm and deliberate statement. "We do not seek war. We do not seek dominance, but we will not surrender. Respect is earned, not demanded." The words were simple, but their impact was profound. The Dravari realized that their assumptions had been flawed. Humans were not reacting out of fear. They were reacting out of intelligence and purpose. Every move was calculated, every response measured, and every action designed to protect their planet while teaching a lesson in humility. Back in the underground command center, humans monitored the Dravari reactions closely. They remained calm, never celebrating, never revealing more than necessary. The goal was clear: demonstrate strength without destruction, control without violence, and patience as a weapon more powerful than any fleet. The Dravari, meanwhile, were beginning to doubt themselves. Their ships were disabled in ways they could not explain. Their landing teams were immobilized by invisible forces. Their communication lines were disrupted, and their attempts at intimidation were met with calm resistance. Pride and arrogance gave way to confusion and fear. For the first time, the Dravari commander considered retreat. He realized that the humans were not a species to conquer through force. They were a species to respect, a species that had survived countless disasters and learned to turn patience and intelligence into strength. The humans had not fired a single weapon, yet they had reshaped the battlefield completely. They had turned fear, pride, and arrogance against the invaders, demonstrating that strength could be invisible, control could be subtle, and patience could be deadly. As night fell across the cities of Earth, the Dravari ships hovered like restless ghosts. They had come seeking dominance, but they were now caught in a web they could not understand. Every attempt to act boldly was met with invisible resistance. Every strategy countered before it could begin. And deep underground, humans continued their work, calm, precise, and unyielding. They did not seek glory. They did not seek recognition. They only sought to protect their planet and teach a lesson the invaders would never forget. The first major confrontation had not yet occurred, but the stage was set. The humans had shown that patience, observation, and intelligence could be more powerful than fleets, weapons, and technology. The Dravari would never again underestimate them, and when the moment came for direct action, the humans would show the galaxy exactly why the elders had warned their species all along. The Dravari commander's frustration had grown into unease, and unease was now spreading like wildfire among his officers. They had arrived expecting obedience, confusion, and fear. Instead, they found humans who did not panic, did not surrender, and did not need to attack to hold control. Every plan they made seemed predicted and countered before it could even begin. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in the labyrinth of command centers, humans prepared for their first full-scale demonstration of strength. They did not seek to destroy, but they intended to make the invaders understand that arrogance had limits. For months, engineers, strategists, and scientists had worked together, building invisible defenses, stealth drones, and automated systems designed to control the battlefield without being seen. Every city, every coastline, every valley had sensors hidden in plain sight. Satellites and orbital drones moved like silent guardians above the Earth. Communication systems were rerouted to give humans control over every signal. No step the Dravari took could escape observation. The first move began in orbit. A Dravari landing group attempted to descend on a remote desert. They believed it to be uninhabited, a safe testing ground. They were wrong. As the ships approached, invisible electromagnetic fields and automated systems subtly interfered with their navigation. Engines sputtered, sensors went offline, and communications cut out. The soldiers inside had no idea what was happening. "This is impossible," one soldier shouted over the communicator. "Our systems are failing." The commander's face turned pale. "Check the instruments again." This cannot be. But the instruments showed the same results. Every piece of technology, every device, every probe had been affected, without humans showing themselves. The first wave of the humans' defensive demonstration had already begun. It was precise, silent, and calculated. On the surface, the first coordinated human teams were ready. They monitored the alien soldiers as they struggled with their malfunctioning equipment. Drones disguised as birds, planes, and satellites moved seamlessly through the air. Automated systems in the desert created barriers that were invisible but impassable. Human engineers had predicted every step of the Dravari landing, and now those predictions were coming true. The Dravari commander could no longer hide his frustration. "They are controlling the battlefield without showing themselves," he muttered. How is this possible? One officer, pale with disbelief, whispered, "They are intelligent and patient. They are using strategy instead of force." The commander clenched his fists. He had relied on intimidation and assumed superiority. But the humans were proving that their patience, intelligence, and subtle control were more powerful than any weapon. As the Dravari soldiers struggled, human teams began to take additional measures. Low-orbit drones positioned themselves strategically to monitor every possible escape route. Communications were intercepted, giving humans a complete picture of the alien movements. At the same time, stealth systems ensured that no human actions were visible to the Dravari, preserving the illusion that the planet itself was responding. Meanwhile, in cities around the world, life continued as normal. People went to work, children played, and traffic flowed. There was no fear, no chaos, no sign of the hidden war above. It was a testament to the humans' discipline and planning. They could defend the planet while keeping the public unaware. The first message to the Dravari came after hours of silent observation. It was not aggressive. It did not threaten. It simply stated, "We are ready. We do not seek war, but we will not surrender." The words had a profound effect. They revealed calm confidence, not anger. They conveyed intelligence, not recklessness. The Dravari were beginning to realize that they were not facing a weak species. They were facing humans, survivors of countless trials, prepared for anything. The next stage of the humans' response began as the Dravari tried to regroup. They had assumed that once they landed soldiers, they would have control. They were wrong. Human systems, designed months in advance, now subtly blocked every attempt at communication between ships and command. Supply lines were rerouted without the Dravari noticing. Vehicles that had been deployed on the surface were subtly interfered with, slowing their movement and forcing the soldiers to reconsider every step. The humans did not attack directly. They did not fire a single weapon. Yet the Dravari felt the full weight of a calculated, invisible force. Every plan they made seemed predicted. Every move they attempted had been accounted for. They were being outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The commander sent a message demanding surrender. Humans responded calmly and deliberately. "Respect is earned. Force cannot command it." The simplicity of the message struck the Dravari like a hammer. They had come believing that power alone could intimidate a species into submission. They were discovering that strength without strategy, arrogance without respect was meaningless. At the same time, humans began to demonstrate precision in their defenses. Drones moved to intercept supply convoys in orbit, rerouting or disabling them without causing destruction. Communication signals were scrambled, forcing the Dravari to rely on outdated systems. On the ground, automated systems subtly reshaped the terrain to make travel difficult for the soldiers, without endangering civilians or property. Every action was a lesson, every maneuver a demonstration of careful intelligence. The Dravari soldiers were frustrated, exhausted, and increasingly aware of their own vulnerability. Their technology was advanced but predictable. The humans, through observation and preparation, exploited every weakness without revealing themselves. They were teaching a lesson in humility, patience, and strategic thinking. In the command centers, humans remained calm. They did not celebrate. They did not reveal more than necessary. Every action was measured, deliberate, and calculated to protect the planet while ensuring the Dravari understood the cost of arrogance. The Dravari commander, watching his fleet struggle to regain control, began to doubt his own judgment. He had assumed superiority. He had expected resistance, but not this level of intelligence and coordination. Humans were proving that survival, strategy, and foresight were more powerful than brute force. For the first time, the Dravari began to see the truth the elders had warned about. Humans were not weak. They were not naive. They were patient, intelligent, and capable of controlling a battlefield without showing themselves. The commander realized that every miscalculation, every act of arrogance, had brought them closer to a lesson they could not avoid. As night fell across the planet, the first subtle shifts in the Dravari strategy became apparent. Fleets hesitated. Soldiers slowed their movements. Commands were repeated, checked, and questioned. They had underestimated humans at every turn. Now the humans were demonstrating that patience, intelligence, and preparation were the ultimate defense. Back in the underground command center, Human strategists monitored the progress. Every success was noted, every adaptation recorded. They were not victorious yet, but the stage had been set. The Dravari had learned caution. They had learned that arrogance could be dangerous. They had learned that humans were patient, strategic, and capable of turning every assumption against their opponents. The first real confrontation had begun, not with weapons, explosions, or chaos, but with intelligence, patience, and careful preparation. The humans had shown that power could be invisible, strength could be subtle, and patience could be more deadly than fleets or weapons. And as the Dravari slowly realized the depth of their mistake, humans remained calm, watching, waiting, and ensuring that the planet and its people would remain safe. The lesson was clear: underestimate humanity at your own peril. The Elders' warning had been ignored for centuries, but now it was coming true. Above Earth, the alien fleet hovered like restless ghosts. They had come seeking dominance, but they were being controlled by a species they had assumed would be weak. Every move they made was anticipated, every plan disrupted, and every assumption challenged. And below the surface, humans remained vigilant, patient, and ready. They had shown the first signs of their strength without firing a single shot, and they were preparing for the moment when direct action might become necessary. The Dravari would never again underestimate Earth. They would never again assume that silence and invisibility meant weakness. The humans had proven that patience, strategy, and intelligence could be more powerful than any weapon. And when the moment came for full engagement, humans would be ready to show the galaxy why the Elders had warned about them all along. The tension in the skies above Earth had reached a breaking point. The Dravari commander, once brimming with arrogance and certainty, now faced doubt, fear, and confusion. Every assumption about humans had been shattered. The ships in orbit were still powerful, their weapons capable of destruction on a massive scale, yet they were unable to achieve a single objective. Every attempt had been predicted, every move countered, and every plan foiled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Beneath the cities, in hidden command centers, humans prepared for the next stage. This would be the moment when patience and planning turned into decisive action, not to destroy, but to teach a lesson the Dravari would never forget. Engineers, strategists, and analysts worked together in perfect synchronization. Every drone, satellite, and automated system was in position. Every contingency had been considered. Every possible reaction of the aliens had been mapped out. Humans understood one fundamental truth: force alone rarely won battles. Intelligence, observation, patience, and precise timing could achieve far more. They did not need to fire a single weapon to show strength, but when the moment came, they were prepared to act. The first sign of humans' decisive response came subtly. In orbit, Dravari ships began to experience small, unexplained failures. Systems flickered, navigation became erratic, and communications lagged. The commander believed it was a technical glitch. He did not realize it was a controlled demonstration of capability. Humans had carefully disrupted the alien systems in ways that forced hesitation, confusion, and self-doubt. On the surface, drones disguised as birds, planes, and satellites moved silently, monitoring every Dravari team. Automated systems subtly altered the environment, blocking paths and making movement unpredictable. No humans were visible. No shots were fired. Yet the Dravari soldiers felt an invisible pressure, a force they could not see but could not ignore. The commander tried to regroup his forces, calling for an organized response. "We are still in control," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Prepare to advance on the western desert. Move with caution but maintain order." The Dravari moved as ordered, but every step was anticipated. Humans had set up subtle defenses, rerouted communications, and positioned orbital drones to intercept signals. Vehicles slowed mysteriously, sensors failed, and paths that seemed open were blocked. The soldiers were increasingly aware that they were not in control, even though no visible threat existed. Meanwhile, humans coordinated their next move. They activated a network of orbital drones to create the illusion of overwhelming presence. Supply lines were silently rerouted, communications scrambled, and landing zones subtly shifted. Every action was designed to teach the aliens that arrogance and underestimation carried a cost. The Dravari commander sent another message demanding surrender. The humans responded calmly. We do not seek war, but we will not bow to threats. Respect is earned, not demanded. You have been warned. The message struck the Dravari like a hammer. It was calm, deliberate, and confident, unlike any threat they had encountered. There was no anger, no panic, no desperation, only intelligence and preparation. The humans had turned the battlefield into a demonstration of strategy, patience, and restraint. The first direct human action followed shortly after. Small groups of Dravari soldiers attempted to advance across key positions in the desert. Within moments, they found themselves immobilized, not by direct attack but by human strategy. Vehicles were subtly trapped, sensors disrupted, and paths blocked. Drones monitored every step. Communications were rerouted, leaving the soldiers disoriented and unsure of what to do. "This cannot be," one soldier shouted. "The terrain itself is against us." The commander, staring at the live reports, realized for the first time the depth of his mistake. Humans were not reacting with brute force. They were controlling the battlefield through intelligence, preparation, and observation. Every action the Dravari attempted had been anticipated, and every flaw in their plans exploited. In the cities below, life remained calm. People went about their days, unaware of the silent battle being waged above them. Markets opened, children played, and traffic flowed. The humans had ensured the safety of their people while demonstrating control over the invaders, a balance of protection and strategy that was almost invisible to outsiders. The Dravari commander, facing growing unrest among his officers, realized that retreat might be the only option. He had underestimated humans, assumed their silence was weakness, and overestimated the power of his fleet. Yet the humans had not even used their full strength. Every system, every drone, and every automated network was operating just below the threshold of visibility. Humans had built their strategy on one principle: patience is power. They had allowed the aliens to act first, to reveal their arrogance and to make mistakes. Every failed maneuver, every miscalculation, and every moment of confusion among the Dravari was a lesson. Humans did not need to attack openly to teach it. Finally, after hours of careful observation, humans initiated the first controlled engagement. Using precision systems, they subtly forced the Dravari ships to retreat from critical orbital positions. No explosions occurred, no lives were lost, but the Dravari could feel the limits of their control shrinking. Their systems failed when they tried to dominate. Their communication lines were intercepted, and their attempts at intimidation were met with invisible but undeniable resistance. The Dravari commander's confidence had completely collapsed. He realized that his arrogance had blinded him. He had assumed humans would fear him, submit, and obey. Instead, they had outmaneuvered him at every turn without firing a single weapon. He now understood the warning that the elders had given centuries ago. Humanity was not a species to underestimate. Humans remained calm, even as the Dravari reeled from the demonstration. There was no celebration, no gloating, no visible display of force. Their strength lay in strategy, observation, and the careful application of invisible power. Every move had been designed to protect Earth while teaching a lesson in humility, patience, and respect. The commander sent one final message, desperate to regain some control. "We will not harm your planet if you surrender. Comply or face consequences." The humans responded simply, deliberately. "We have already shown the cost of underestimation. We do not seek war, but we will defend our home. Respect is not demanded, it is earned." The simplicity of the message shocked the Dravari. They had never faced a species that could control the battlefield without being seen, without resorting to violence, and without showing anger or fear. They realized that humans' intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking were more powerful than any weapon. At that moment, the first seeds of real understanding took root among the Dravari officers. They began to doubt their own judgment, question their assumptions, and realize that they had underestimated a species whose strength was measured not in fleets or weapons, but in calculation, foresight, and restraint. On Earth, humans continued to monitor every movement. They ensured the safety of civilians, maintained control over their systems, and prepared for any final escalation. Their patience had worked. Their strategy had been validated. The aliens who had assumed dominance were now forced to reconsider every step, every plan, and every assumption. The skies above Earth grew calm, though the tension lingered like a shadow. The Dravari had learned a powerful lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their silence had been strength. Their patience had been power. Their intelligence had been a weapon more effective than any fleet. The commander finally ordered a withdrawal. The Dravari ships retreated to orbit, no longer confident, no longer arrogant, and deeply aware of their limitations. They had come to Earth expecting compliance, but they were leaving with a new understanding. Humanity was patient, observant, and capable of controlling the battlefield without even revealing itself fully. Below, life continued as it always had. People went about their daily routines, unaware of the silent war that had taken place above them. Humans had protected their world, preserved their civilization, and demonstrated the true meaning of strength. They had acted without violence, without chaos, and without fear. Their message was clear. Arrogance and underestimation had consequences, and patience, intelligence, and strategy were forces to be reckoned with. In hidden command centers, humans recorded the final reports, analyzed every move, and prepared for the future. They knew the galaxy would take notice. The lesson they had delivered would spread far beyond Earth. Underestimating humanity was a mistake that no species could afford to repeat. The elders' warnings had been ignored for centuries. Now, through patience, intelligence, and careful strategy, humans had proven why they had been right. They had survived every trial, outsmarted a powerful alien fleet, and protected their planet, all without a single overt act of aggression. And above all, humans had shown that true strength was not measured by weapons or numbers but by wisdom, patience, and the courage to act decisively when the time was right. The Dravari would remember this day forever. The galaxy would remember. And humanity, calm and patient, would continue to thrive, quietly, intelligently, and prepared for anything the universe could send next.